I mean, you've got to admire the brazenness of Fine Gael. They oversee an unequal tax haven economy where 1.5 million people live in poverty. And yet, in the media this week, they're presented as champions of equality. The media is full of pictures of Leo Varadkar and Simon Harris waving and being cheered in Dublin Castle. Media headlines like, "The people like Leo, but they love Simon Harris." You think you're losing your mind because you say to yourself, is this the same Simon Harris that oversees a health service where hundreds of people die every year because of privatisation? Is this the same Simon Harris that continued the very outsourcing policies implemented by Mary Harney that led to the deaths of 18 women? Is this the same Fine Gael that oversees a housing crisis where vulture funds like Iris Ria are making millions every year as Ireland's biggest landlords, while 10,000 people are homeless and 100,000 are on waiting lists, where people are being evicted by banks for falling into mortgage arrears? Are these the same champions of equality that have brought in the oldest pension age in the world, meaning that people who've worked all their lives just have to keep working? You see, there's always been two tactics in the Irish ruling class. There was the old De Valera Archbishop McQuaid tactic, which was to use the unity of church and state power to crush working class opposition to the Golden Circle. But you see, after 2009 and the collapse of Fianna Fáil and the damage done to the establishment parties by the austerity years, with Fine Gael in as a minority government, they knew they had to give ground to social progress or face the ire and anger of working class people. The establishment parties were losing votes. And in the face of a mass people power movement of people on the streets in their tens of thousands after Savita's death, demanding change, forcing change on the establishment politicians, they changed their tune. But you see, while they're willing to concede us some social rights, they won't concede any ground on their tax haven economy. What the D4 liberal wing of the ruling class likes to do is say to you, yeah, you can have marriage equality. You can marry who you like. Yeah, okay, we'll give ground to the popular movement and let you have abortion rights. But guess what? You're going to work in precarious jobs. You're going to work for poverty wages. You're going to pay rents that represent most of your income every week. We're going to impoverish society for the sake of a tiny elite at the top. And it's precisely through that grossly unequal economic situation that they undermine your social rights. In other words, a woman can win abortion rights, but then a neoliberal health service comes along and says, that'll be 300-400 quid, please. If we want the fight for rights to mean something, it has to continue into the fight for economic equality. Capitalism survives because it separates the political from the economic. They say we're all equal. I get the same vote as Denis O'Brien, but he's got 6 billion in the bank, which means he can buy the media, buy politicians. And 6 billion represents control over a quite significant workforce. And while you might get to vote and you're told that you're free while you're voting, the workplace is a dictatorship where bosses like Denis O'Brien and the Irish elite get to do what they want. So capitalism survives on giving us a formal democracy and fake equality while being based on a ruthless economic dictatorship. The fight for rights is important. The fight for women's rights, the fight for equality, the fight against racism. But these rights will be constantly undermined if we don't also connect them to the fight for economic equality. Most of us are working class. Most of us need to live in an economy where we're not just slaves for a tiny ruling class. The fight for equality has to culminate in the fight for a socialist society, where the wealth of society isn't in the hands of people like Denis O'Brien to do with as they wish, or in the hands of Apple or the corporations. The wealth of society has to be in our collective hands so that we can decide what to do with that wealth.